Space travel company Virgin Galactic reported fourth quarter earnings, and investors were not happy. Net losses almost doubled to $150 million for the quarter. On an adjusted EBITDA basis, that number was $133 million, which missed analysts' expectations. And meanwhile, revenue beat expectations, but the number was basically negligible. It was $869,000 for the quarter. And just for some context, that's 5 times less than what Cristiano Ronaldo makes in 1 week. Virgin Galactic shares fell 16% in after-hours trading. So, Scott, before we look at these earnings, could you just give us the context on what Virgin Galactic actually is?
Well, just to go very meta, it's literally the shittiest business in the world. But what it does is their mission says they're trying to be the world's first commercial space line. And our purpose is to connect people across the globe to the love, wonder, and awe created by space travel. Yeah, fuck you. Anyways, essentially, their product is for $450,000, you can have a 90-minute suborbital journey. And at that price, it's only expected to generate revenue of $2.7 million per flight, meaning it would have to fly 185 times per year to offset its losses. It hasn't done any commercial flights yet, but plans to in 2023. Not going to happen. And the company received more than 8,000 applications of interest, as they say, as of February 22. So Virgin pulled off, to their credit, what I think is probably the most successful PR stunt of the last decade. When Richard went up there and they had cameras showing their trip into space, the whole world was watching, and it was a really dramatic moment. And the entire world knows about this product. And when they say 8,000 applications of interest, that's not how many people have actually plunked down $400,000. So generously, it might be 500 or 1,000 people out of the billions of people that saw this. And companies that are usually one of two things. They're either supply constrained or demand constrained. So most companies are demand constrained, meaning that McDonald's would like to have more people who want burgers. The Four Seasons wants more people to buy hotel rooms right now. They have a lot of excess capacity. Actually, I don't know if that's true. Away luggage could handle 1 million more orders pretty quickly. They're not really hard objects to produce. And then we saw a lot of companies that were supply constrained. And that is a Gulfstream G600 is somewhat supply constrained. It's very hard to make a commercial airliner or a private jet. So Boeing and Embraer and strong economies or Airbus are more supply constrained than demand constrained. And there's just certain things you can only make so much of. But again, companies are usually demand constrained more than they are supply constrained. Virgin Galactic is this unique combination of wildly demand constrained. There just isn't that big a market for people who are going to pay $500,000 to go into kind of suborbit. That's just a pretty limited market. And then supply constraint. Space is a dangerous and expensive business. They have not been able to put these things into the air at any regular basis. They've missed every milestone. They're limited in terms of the supply. So this is literally the mother of all shitty businesses. It's just both. I can't think of a business that's more supply and demand constrained at the same time.
Would you ever pay for the flight? I mean, put all your biases aside. Would you be down?
I'm not exaggerating. If someone said every human has to go on Virgin Galactic unless you pay $4.5 million not to go, I would pay $4.5 million not to go. I get motion sickness, and I look at data. 550 people have gone into space, and 11 have not returned, which means space travel is more dangerous than base jumping. And this whole thing goes to zero. I believe this company goes to zero, and it goes to zero one of two ways. One, over the medium term, it's just a shitty business, and people realize it can't justify the revenues are never going to catch up to the expenses. Or two, Bob from accounting gets blown up on the launch pad. This is a dangerous business, and I don't think I get motion sickness. I really am into this whole life thing. I'm just really kind of enjoying it. I'm going to ride this whole life thing out. So I would never. Would you do this? If someone said to you, let's not even say $450,000 because I know how much I pay you. If someone said, we'll give you 90% off, would you do it for $45,000?
No, I wouldn't. But I'm in a completely different position from you. I mean, I'm wondering from your position where you
got
have
less
all this,
to live for.
Yeah. Well, I would not pay 45. I wouldn't blow 45K on basically anything at this point in my life. But the thing that's interesting is, I don't know, it sounds like it's not the price point that's making you hesitant. I mean, I remember a year ago you were big on supersonic
Yeah,
flights.
I still am.
Uh, yeah. So can you explain how, like, why is that reasonable to you, and then this isn't? It's just it's a safety and danger thing?
I invested $3 million. Was it 3 million? I think it was $3 million in a company called Boom Technologies, which is trying to produce the first supersonic commercial aircraft in 40 or 50 years. There hasn't been supersonic commercial travel since the Concorde's crash. And I think the market is enormous. I think there's a huge market of people, including myself, that would pay 10, 20, $50,000. I came home from London, or I came home from Miami yesterday. You know, 9 hour flight, just absolutely wrecks me in my age. And Boom Supersonic believes that we're going to be able to get people from at least from New York to London in 3 to 3.5 hours. I think that's a game changer. I think
Mm,
it's the toll it takes on your body, the fact that it opens up different continents for kind of a long weekend versus a week. And the only thing, I just think there are so many people out there that are running out of time and because of income inequality, just have so much more money than time that they would absolutely pay. I mean, there's people who pay 150 grand to take a Gulfstream across the pond because they get to decide when it leaves. That's actually a fairly big market. There's quite a few people doing that. So if you said to them, get to Heathrow and we can get you to New York in 3.5 hours. If you leave here at 8 a.m., we can get you there at 6 a.m. and you have a full day, or we can get you home in time to go to sleep. I think that market is huge. And then the progress in terms of propulsion and materials and avionics has been pretty dramatic. So I think it's commercially viable. So I'm the only thing in my life that is not perfect is the amount of time I spend in the air, and I think I'm part of a growing number of people that have the money now that would pay a lot of money to save that kind of time. So I'm a huge advocate. And not only that, after we talked about this before, I love aviation. The guy running Boom is a smart guy from Amazon. Um, so there's no doubt about it. It's a long shot investment. There's a lot that can go wrong. This is complicated technology, but it is dramatically less difficult, less dangerous, and less expensive to fly along at 50,000 feet as opposed to, going into space. It's just an
hmm
entirely different game.
hmm And finally, so Virgin Galactic said that they expect the first consumer space flights to happen in the second quarter of 2023. In other words, now, you know, sometime in the next couple of months. Um, Sounds like you don't buy that. Am I right?
Yeah, and Rivian will be profitable. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just not going to happen.
yeah,
It's just this is it's an incredibly difficult business. And it isn't that now? Have
yeah.
they do they have a planned launch coming up? I don't think this company wants to do a lot of planned launches. I think this doesn't end well. I think
hmm
this I'd rather this business end because of shitty cash flows than ends because of a flash.
Yeah,
So I think this is, and I want to be clear, I was the original hater here. I've hated this thing for a long time. I think anything with the term Virgin on it, whether it's Virgin Galactic or Virgin Orbital, which is actually a better business, is primarily a vessel for transferring money from retail investors to a struggling airline or cruise ship line owned by a very charming and fascinating entrepreneur out of the UK. I think these are shitty businesses, and I have trouble finding any business anywhere that makes less sense than Virgin Galactic. The whole space thing, there's space tourism, which is a stupid business and will go away. There's space exploration, which isn't space exploration, it's space execution. Anyone who's stupid enough to go to Mars is mentally unfit to do anything. And then you have space hauling. And that is actually a good business because there's a lot of technology and utility in putting satellites up into the air, and the ability to haul material and equipment into orbit is going to like grow 15-fold in demand. But that all plays to SpaceX. SpaceX has
yeah.
attracted the best engineers and the most capital. I think, my view of SpaceX is going to be worth more than Tesla, mostly because Tesla's value will rationalize. But if you look at Starlink, if you look at the Falcon Heavy rocket's ability to get material into space, it's kind of, what does it cost per kilogram to get stuff safely into orbit? SpaceX, their Falcon Heavy rocket, just beats everything. So, but space in general is really fun. It's interesting to talk about. It's interesting. It's captured a lot of imagination, and CNBC puts, very charming, charismatic people on with Richard Branson to talk about Virgin Galactic as a software company. But yeah, the space is, watch out. Space is, in space, no one can hear you screaming. In space, you lose all your fucking money.
Yeah, well, SpaceX is now valued at $137 billion, and it was just awarded a $1.4 billion contract from NASA. So there is money here, but it's not going to Virgin Galactic. Let's go to Mia on the street to see if New Yorkers would pay to go to space.
So would you go to space?
I would go to space.
And why?
I'd just check it out.
I think so, yes, actually.
I would not.
I feel like it'd be a once-in-a-lifetime experience, so I would do it.
No.
I would also never do that. I feel like space right now is for science, not for tourism. So I wouldn't want to spend my money like that. And also, I'm scared.
I think I would. I think the world as it is right now is going through the most. And especially in my country, I wouldn't mind a little forever trip to space. I wouldn't mind that at all.
I think it was Jeff Bezos who took William Shatner up in space. And William Shatner's reaction, I'm a big Star Trek guy, William Shatner's reaction when he came back to Earth, just absolutely, that guy it was crazy looking at that. It was almost brought me to tears. And I think a lot of us have this dream, so most definitely, I think it would be a tour of the lifetime.
It's a different perspective, right? So you're in a different area looking down at where you normally tread, and I'm sure that there's something really beautiful about that.
Would you go to space?
Hell yeah.
And why?
I ain't never been up there before.
How much would you pay to go to space?
I don't know, 15 grand.
Around 10,000 and
Like 20 grand, maybe?
50,000, I think is my max right now.
And whatever the ticket costs, I'm there. I'm one of them types. If you tell me how much it is, I'll go get it.
$400K.
All right, I'll go get it after I do a few other things.
Oh, you didn't mention I had to pay. I found out the exchange rate is actually 1:18 with the dollars, so
Really good in space.
yeah.
How much are tickets right now?
I think $400,000.
Yeah, that's like absurd. Like, go up there. Maybe just stay up there.
And are you afraid of blowing up?
It wasn't until you mentioned it. I'd never thought about the idea of blowing up on the moon until you just mentioned it right now.
I was thinking more in terms of takeoff.
Oh! Didn't even think about that. So now I definitely am not going to space. I will stay home where I'm probably not going to blow up.